Okay, once you've scanned your original cell into the computer, you are ready to put it in Photoshop and clean it up a little bit. We'll take care of all those issues before we actually make a pattern from the cell. So you'll open up Photoshop and you'll go up to File and Open, and then you'll select your cell that you're going to open. There we go, beautiful. Excuse me, and there he is. So the first thing that you might have to do is crop your image. If you didn't set the image size when you did the scan, you might have a lot of extra sort of negative space. So you'll want to select the cropping tool, and then you can determine the size that you want. Mine's already cropped to 8.5 by 8.5, so I have no cropping really to show you. I can do a bad crop just to sort of show you how to crop it and then how to undo it. So let's say I select what I want to keep, and then I either double click or hit return. This looks pretty hilarious. It's not bad, actually. It would be a pretty funny pattern, but I want to undo it. So to undo it, I'm going to hit Command Z, and that brings up our original image. So after you've cropped it, you've sized it to how you want it, then what you should do is you want to clean up your background. So if you have any spots or anything, you can clean those up with the eraser tool or with the clone stamp. So in order to sort of see what I'm dealing with, I'm going to hold the command key down and then hit the plus key. And then I can take my space bar and either my mouse or my trackpad and move the image around just to see how it's doing, if I have any flaws. And I don't really see anything that bothers me about the background. I think what does sort of bother me is kind of how hard this edge is. Since I didn't have the kitty taped down all the way, there's a little bit of a cast shadow that's there. And I think maybe if I soften that a little bit, it'll give me a better result. But we'll go to that later. So I'm going to hold down the command key and zoom out by clicking the minus key, and there we go. What you can do now is you can sort of play around with things like contrast, your color balance, the brightness of the image, and see if there's something that you can do to it that you might like even more than the original. But every time you do something like this, it's a really smart idea to make it a new layer. That way you never lose your original. So I'm going to go to Layer and hit Duplicate Layer, and as a background copy, that's fine. You could name it. I'm going to name this Brightness and Color Play, let's say. Okay, hit OK. And there we go. So now I know no matter what I do to this, I still have this background, saved. So you can come up here to Image, Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast. So you guys have already played around with this a little bit in your book cover, but let's say I wanted to tweak, the brightness, make them super duper bright, lose some of those darker shadows. It's a look, I think I'm going to keep it where I had it. I sort of like the way they look. I could play around with the contrast, kind of make them lower contrast, make them super high contrast. Kind of looks like a filter's been placed on it. But I'm going to stay where it was, but you could do that. Hit OK. I could come up here to Image, Adjustments, and then Color Balance, have some fun with that. So let's say I want to make these kitties super pinky red. I could do something like that. Or, fuchsia. You name it. Let's go. I kind of like that. And then I'd hit OK. So this would be just for my color experimentation. So you can play around with that if you like. I think, however, I'm going to stick with the original. So I'm going to turn this off. In fact, since I know I'm not going to use it, I'll probably end up trashing it. So I would drag it and drop it into the trash. And I don't think it'll show up on the screen, will it? I'll keep it there for now. There's only so much I can fit on the screen. Okay, so we're back to the background. So now, since I am not thrilled with these edges, I'm going to soften them by using the blur tool. And the blur tool is over here. It looks kind of like a teardrop, so I'm going to select that. And then I can, if I come up here, I can make the size of the tool larger or smaller. This would be huge, right? So I'm going to keep it right around where it was, about 50, give or take. And then the hardness is not just that edge, but sort of like how impactful sort of that is, the blur itself. I'm going to keep it low. I want it nice and soft. So there we go. And then I can come over to strength, and this is more of an opacity issue. So I'm going to keep it at 50. That seems nice right in the middle. This would be lower, obviously, higher, obviously. So I'll start with that. You can always adjust that as you go. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in so that I can see the edge that I'm going to work. And I'll use my space bar and pull the image down. So I'm going to deal just really quickly with this and see if that makes any kind of nice impact. So I would select the edge. Oh, okay. So I have to go back down here and unlock this. So I'm doing this change right on my background. I could make a new layer, a copy right from the background, and that's probably what I should do, but I'm going to go ahead and just work the background copy. So it's kind of like a back and forth, almost like you're erasing. And what it's essentially doing is pulling the background and the foreground sort of together. It's kind of like if you were doing a painting and doing a wet blend, wet into wet, for all of you painters out there. So I'm going to really soften up that little harsh edge where my cut wasn't particularly round. Okay, super exciting. That's looking good. And I think that when I pull back from this, I'm going to like it a lot more. Because I think anytime you repeat something, although this is going to be a lot smaller once I repeat it, you're repeating everything. So if there's something you're not thrilled about with your image, then you're like not thrilled about it, 12 times in your piece. So it makes sense to do what you can to make your original cell what you want it to be. All right, so that looks pretty good. I can come back to this. If at any time, I don't know, I had gone crazy or something with it, I can always undo. But I'm going to hit Command and the minus and sort of go back. And I think I like that. So there are other places where I'll do this, probably like in here, maybe like in here, and we'll see. And it probably would be nice if I softened this too, because that cut is pretty extreme. Okay, so I will do that, and then I'll do the next video when this is all updated. And then hit save. Always save. So this is going to be Kitty corrected, and I'm going to save it as a JPEG. There we go, to the desktop. Maximum, because we deserve maximum quality. Okay, great. See you later.